They leave, and then Pharaoh has a change of heart and follows after them. And then we have probably the most famous symbolic event in the Exodus event, and that is the parting of the, and most of you have heard this as the Red Sea. And if you look on your maps, the Red Sea is a very large body of water, hundreds of miles to the south of Egypt. And it's not, in fact, what the Hebrew says. Hebrew does not say Red Sea or any other similar geographic designation. What the Hebrew says is the parting of the Sea of Reeds, which we don't exactly know what that corresponds to, but there were a number of swampy areas in the northern border between Egypt and the Sinai, in what's now the Suez Canal. And it's probably one of the kind of swampy regions there that they went across. Anyway, the Israelites parted, Yahweh parts the Red Sea, the Israelites cross over, and then when the Pharaoh tries to follow with his army, the waters close in on them and they're all killed. And that's the Exodus event. Great celebration. The second half, and the rest of the Torah is framed within the narrative of the second half, which is why I'm treating it all together. Now, the legal material in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy comes from all kinds of places and has a lot of different pedigrees. Some of them we could see they're copied from Egyptian laws. Some of them we could see they're copied from Babylonian laws. They come from all over the map. So we're not saying that all of these laws actually came from God on Mount Sinai, but that's the narrative. That's the way it's framed. So what we have there is they traveled through the wilderness, the Sinai wilderness. I suppose I've been avoiding this. I need to draw the map. This is the ancient Near East. Down here is Egypt. This is Palestine. This is the Mediterranean Sea. So right here, there's a triangular spit of land with water on either side. This is the sea again. This is the Sinai. It has been the possession of Egypt for many thousands of years. In the Arab-Israeli War, modern Israelis took it over, and they gave it back in the treaty that was signed between Egypt and Israel. Anyway, they're wandering in here, and Moses takes them down to what's called alternately either Mount Sinai or Mount Horeb, which probably represents different sources of the story. And on that mountain, Moses climbs up, and he sees God. And God gives him the law. And almost the entirety of the rest of the Torah is taken up with the laws that Yahweh is giving to Moses. I'm going to go through the other books real quickly now. And there's some interesting things that happen. He comes down, so we have Exodus 1 through 19, the Exodus event. I'm just abbreviating EE. Then Exodus 20 through, 40 is the law from Mount Sinai. And I guess we could say reactions. So Moses comes down after being up there for 40 days, and the people have built an idol, and he breaks the tablets of stone and kills many of the people, and they're sorry, and then he gets a new tablet. A lot of stuff that happens, interesting stuff. But anyway, then we have, but that's all part of the giving of the law from Mount Sinai. Then we have the building of the sacred tent. Yahweh stipulates a certain sacred space that must be created from which Yahweh is to be met and worshipped. And so we have an account of the building of the tent, clothing of the priests, appointing of a lot of stuff like that. Then we get to Leviticus. And what you see in there is the word Levi. Levi is the tribe that supplied most of the official Israelite priests. And Leviticus is a document of instruction for the priests. There's one or two really interesting narratives in there, but for the most part, It's how to slaughter the animals, what animals to pick, how to dress, what to say, what prayers to give, who becomes priest, how do they take turns, how do they build the different instruments in the tent. You'll sometimes see this called by the Old English word for tent, tabernacle. And that's a fairly common way to distinguish the sacred tent from another tent. So Leviticus is all kinds of instructions for priests. Numbers has two things in it. It's an account of the Israelite wandering in the Sinai. What happened is it took them roughly 40, 50 days from Mount Sinai to get to the Promised Land. Now, why is it called the Promised Land? We're talking about Canaan. It's the land that Yahweh promised to Abraham. So they get to the very edge of the Promised Land, and Moses sends spies in. And the spies come back. 2 of the spies say, great land, let's go do it. And 10 of the spies, one from each of the tribes, says, the inhabitants of that land are very strong. We couldn't possibly overcome them. And the people go into wholesale rebellion against Moses. They refuse to go into the land. And out of anger, Yahweh says that every single person who rejected the counsel of the 2 good spies is going to die in the wilderness. And Yahweh is going to wait a whole generation before he brings a new generation into the land. So Numbers is the account of the wandering for 40 years in the desert until everybody dies. The other part of Numbers are lists of registered families. Israel, as are most cultures, is very interested in genealogies and tracing who exactly is an Israelite and which lines are official and which lines are okay to be priests and which lines aren't. So there are interminable, boring lists of names in Numbers, which is why we get the name of the book. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I never read them. I skip right over them. They're boring. But some of the stories in Numbers are in fact quite good. And finally we get Deuteronomy. All of these are Christian names for the books. The Jews have entirely different names for each of these books. Shmot, Varikiyah, can't remember. But anyway, there are a few of them. I believe it's in one of our textbooks. Anyway, Deuteronomy, it comes from 2 Greek roots again, actually 1. It means the second 2. The second, that's Deutera, and Namas means law. So Deuteronomy is the second giving of the law. And it comes from an entirely different source, but in terms of this overall narrative of the Torah, what we see here is this is Moses' final instructions. He's not going into the Promised Land himself. He's going to die in the wilderness, and these are his final instructions to the Israelites before they're led into the land by Moses' assistant Joshua. So it's kind of a rehashing, a renewal of the law and of the covenant with this new generation. Because the old generation heard the covenant in Exodus, now they've all died. And now a whole new generation is about to go into the land. So Moses tells them the covenant again. So that's the structure of the remaining portions of the Torah.